Russ Toronto here with Ashley, one of our assistants in the clinic here, talking about some of the exercises we do for shoulder strengthening for the rotator cuff. And these are the four most important exercises you can do for a rotator cuff problem. It's really important to make sure that you stay pain-free when you're doing these. And as we've talked about when I've seen you in the clinic, you want to progress through them gradually and slowly, not inducing any pain while you're doing it, and then afterwards not having any soreness that persists longer than a half an hour. So make sure you stay pain-free with all of these moves as you're doing these four exercises. The reason why these particular four is because each one isolates a different muscle that's part of the rotator cuff. Some of them will be easier than others, so on those you can start with higher repetitions and get through them faster. On the ones that are more difficult, because those muscles are a little weaker, it may take longer to be able to build up your repetitions, but it's important to do these with good form, or else you won't get good isolation of the muscles we're trying to isolate. And this is good for throwing balls, you know, and individuals that have shoulder pain from that, or just rotator cuff injuries in general. So we give these to baseball players, football players, throwing athletes, swimming athletes. All those can be benefited by these exercises if they have a shoulder problem. But extremely important to remember to stay pain-free when you're doing these and use good form when you do. So the first exercise is usually the easiest of all of them because it exercises one of the muscles down lower in the shoulder, and it's rare to injure this. So Ashley's going to show us how you do it. You get the band hooked around something that won't move. Keep the hand lined up with the band, okay? Thumb pointing along the line of the band. Arms straight, and pull back as far as you can go without twisting your body. So you can see Ashley staying perpendicular to the camera, and then let it go back slow. So usually you try to do it with a 3 count. 1 back, you can go back faster, and let it go towards the door slower. So 1, 2, 3. And as you can see, she's really controlling the band instead of letting it just go back hard. And that the going back part actually gives you more strengthening than the pulling out part. So that's the first exercise, usually the easiest, and usually you can do more repetitions to begin with on that one. The second one, Ashley will turn to the side, and she's going to pull her arm out. So move a little bit more away from the door. So there's you want tension on the band from this hip here. So scoot out a little bit more. The tension from that hip and all the way out. And she's going to rotate her arm out just as far as it will comfortably go. As long as you get it past perpendicular here, that's okay. The mistake a lot of people make is pulling too far out and getting your elbow out away from the body. And keep your elbow right tight and just go as far as you can comfortably go out this way. Some people it's right here. Some people go a little further if they have a looser shoulder. And the same thing as we did on the other exercise. Faster out, slower back. Faster out, slower back. And this is usually the second part, the easiest one to do. And on all of these, you want to start with, you can start with 15 repetitions and gradually build up to 30. Then if you're big enough and strong enough, we may give you a blue band that's a little stronger to convert to once you've accomplished 30 repetitions with the red band. Some people just don't need to because they're smaller, have smaller muscle mass. So this is the second exercise. That exercises the muscle up a little bit further on the rotator cuff. And again, stay pain-free through this whole motion that you're doing. And don't worry if you can't get too far out. Just go as far as you can, past straight ahead, and you've got it. Third exercise is coming across the front of your body. This will be a little harder to do usually. Scoot a little bit more this way, Ashley, so there's more tension. And you want to have tension from, again, this hip over, and she's going to pull, come a little bit, you know, let it go back a little bit further there. Okay, so you know your hand are good. So you're going to start off this hip, pull across here, about out to there, and then on the sheet we usually give people, it shows the individual with their arm a little higher. You finish about there. And again, stay pain-free when you're doing it. Keep your shoulders square. You don't want to raise your arm up and use your trap when you're doing it. You want to keep your shoulder flat and square and control it all the way across. Mistakes that are made, some people will bend their elbow when they're doing it instead of keeping it locked straight. Some people will turn their hand like this instead of like that. Make sure your hand stays lined up with the band. And then some people will, as they get out here, start to shrug their shoulder up like that instead of keeping it square. If you do that, you really don't get good isolation. This exercises the muscle a little higher, the infraspinatus, which is one of the ones that's usually involved more often in the rotator cuff problem. So it'll be a little more difficult. Again, stay pain-free when you're doing it. The last one is the hardest to do of all of these. And so after you've completed these 3 exercises, you do 3 sets, start with 15 reps, work up to 30 gradually. This 4th one is the most commonly done wrong, the hardest to do, and also the most important of all of them because it isolates the muscle that's the most important in your rotator cuff. It's called the supraspinatus, and that's the muscle that comes across the top of the shoulder and attaches right there. It's the tendon or muscle that gets torn in rotator cuff tears. It's the one that gets inflamed when you have rotator cuff tendonitis, and it's usually the weak one that contributes to the shoulder problems the throwers have. So there's 3 things that are really important to do on this exercise. 1, keep your thumb pointed down at the ground. Number 2, come out at a 30-degree angle from here, so right about a third of the way out, as Ashley's doing, kind of where your head naturally stops when you turn it to the side. You can just line your arm up with that and end up at the right angle. And number 3, keeping the arm totally locked straight when you do it. So thumb down, 30-degree angle out here, and arm straight as you're doing it, and then elevate to the level of your shoulders. Again, the exercise sheet you may have been given in our clinic goes a little higher than that. You just need to come out to shoulder height, and then be careful to not involve your trapezius or keep your shoulders square again. A lot of people have difficulty doing this exercise, so they'll start engaging the trap and end up isolating that instead of this muscle we need to get. So make sure you keep your shoulders square as Ashley's doing, arms straight, thumb down, and nice and deliberate as she's doing so that you don't hurry through it. The letting it go down part actually does more for strengthening of the shoulder than the pulling up part. This will be the most important exercise to get done, the hardest to do, but once you can do this, most rotator cuff problems will be resolved if you have good strength in this particular muscle. Again, don't do it through pain, don't do it through pain that lasts after you exercise, and try to make sure you get good isolation so that you don't exercise other muscles that you really don't need to worry about. Thanks for your attention.